Dobbs, are you buying that Dable, Shane, and Daniel Jones will all be gone from the New York Giants come 2025?
Absolutely, Hunter. And I think that every single Giants fan on the face of the earth that hasn't had their, head in the sand over the last 365 days is on the exact same page as us. There's so much we could say, but I'm gonna let you lay out your points first
Yeah.
before I go to my tangent.
So I'm gonna just say this right now. I do believe that I would have bought this narrative before the season even started, before the preseason started. After watching Hard Knocks, I would have bought this narrative. So just to give it a kind of a breakdown, Dable and Shane have been with the Giants for 3 years. They're 15-20-1 as a GM, and they extended Daniel Jones. Let's not forget that Daniel Jones was not their pick. Daniel Jones has been with the Giants for 6 years, 22-38-1 record. He's never played a full 17-game season. 2022 was the only year Daniel Jones had a positive EPA per dropback at 0.03, and the Giants have never had a positive EPA per pass season since Daniel Jones has been the QB all the way to when he was drafted. Giants have never had a positive EPA per play under Dable, although they do have one playoff win with a 20, but in 2022, they had a negative 6-point differential when they got into the playoffs, right? So they were not necessarily like a high-scoring team, right? Shane has had 24 draft picks in 3 years. 21 are on the active roster, which is about 39.6% of the roster. And outside of Malik Neighbors, and if you want to argue Kayvon Thibodeau, their best players have come from previous regimes, free agency, or trade. And we know that's not necessarily how you're supposed to build your roster, right? Like, they drafted Evan Neal with the first-round pick. They took Wan'Dale Robinson, who is not a bad player, but was he worth a second-round pick? They let Xavier McKinney walk. There has not been this hope or positivity around what the Giants can be this year, I feel like, from a lot of people in general. And to start off the year 0-2, to have the kicker issue with Graham Gano, to basically lose to the Commanders, who went through a complete regime change and is a rookie QB and probably will have one of the worst defenses in the league, is embarrassing. And Dable just is kind of showing, in my opinion, that he kind of knows it's cooked. Like, slamming his headset. Like, I know Dable's a fiery guy, but at the end of the day, like, it just doesn't look good when everyone knows your team is kind of in a bad position and you're losing to a brand new regime with a rookie quarterback. And they're a division rival.
No, absolutely. So everything you just said, I mean, absolutely spot on, Hunter. You killed it. I mean, like that's all, everything the Giants fans need to hear. Now, what I want to add on and just kind of throw in some extra context is all the little things that I think we have to, sprinkle in there to make people understand how much worse it even is than it seems on the surface. So even to your point of, they bring in all these guys outside of their own team that they spend money on the guys that are not like from other regimes. But here's where it becomes problematic, Hunter. It becomes incredibly problematic when you realize that all this money spent has basically been wasted. I mean, right? So, and let me explain why it's been wasted. Okay. So, I remember this offseason, and, again, we were ahead of the game on this one, way ahead of the game. I was saying to Giants fans, we go back, Giants fans, go pull up the offseason stuff. You guys were hating. I was saying that, John Runyon and Van Roten, like, you're bringing in guys who had like solid seasons, but they're aging and they're more depth pieces. And everyone's like, no, like this is going to change the O-line. No, it certainly hasn't. They're playing horrendous football this year. And, for what it's worth, John Runyon, I won't say horrendous, but John Runyon is playing average football at best. Van Roten's having a massive regression and playing bad football. That is a fact. John Michael Schmidt, for what it's worth, actually playing somewhat better football this year, but still not playing like an above average center. He's still playing like a below average center. Jermaine Elnor, also making a regression this season. And then, we know about Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas is one of the best tacklers in the league, but he's only the only functioning piece on this entire O-line. Let's move over to the tight end situation next, because this is where I think things are arguably even the worst on the entire roster. It's tight end, so nobody's really worried about it. Really, it's just going to get talked about. But, you move over to the Giants depth chart, right? We have Theo Johnson starting that you just spent your 4th-round pick on, and then we have Chris Manhurts behind him, and then Daniel Bellinger. Theo Johnson this year, Hunter, 1 reception for 18 yards. From your starting tight end. And I'm aware that the Giants are not necessarily targeting their tight end a lot. I get that it's more part of the run game, but the bottom line is that that's really bad when not only do you spend high, right, to me, 4th round pick is high draft capital. I'll say anything first to 4 is high draft capital to me. And You're not using him, you're not targeting him, and we knew his athletic upside, but point is asset used on somebody that's also grading it as their 65th out of 69 tight ends. I know tight ends take a while to develop, so I'm not going to harp on tight ends for too long. Well, let's move over to the receiver situation, right? I mean, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, absolutely not moving the needle. We know what Malik Neighbors is going to be, but Hunter, to me, I thought the Giants would have learned what happens when you spend a higher first round pick on a receiver that no matter how uber talented they are, it doesn't change anything about the fabric of your team, circa OBJ, right? We've already learned this lesson, I thought, over there in New York, but apparently not. And then we move over to the defense. And, I want to say, Hunter, hand up. One of my guys out of that class, I loved him. And he was a much different player coming out of college, much different. However, I do remember there were some character concerns, which kind of seem to be showing themselves now, but that's not even the problem. If Kayvon Thibodeau was only having character concerns, it wouldn't be a problem. It's the fact that you have character concerns on top of the fact that he has the lowest pressure rate of any active, if I'm not mistaken, I know for after week 1 it was the lowest pressure rate over the last season of any active edge rusher. Now fact check me on this, but I'm almost, because I want to say this out loud. That might be slightly wrong. I don't remember exactly what the stat was. I always like to, I'm going to correct myself. All I know is Kayvon Thibodeau's pressure rate is very, very critically low. And especially for how high he was drafted, it is incredibly low and it is dismal. And then on the other side, Brian Burns. Okay, yeah, you know what? Brian Burns, we know. Brian Burns is not playing terrible football, but he's not playing anywhere near as good as you paid him, right? We're talking a guy that is making, now let me just fact check myself here, Hunter, because I don't want to misspeak on his contract, but we're talking about a guy that is making roughly, hold on. So I'll just say the number out loud. 141 million over 5 years. How about that? I don't want to do any division in my head right now, but that's massive money and a massive amount of the cap. And again, another decision greenlit by everybody that we're talking about right now in this regime. So, and that's just the D line, the DB situation. Andrew Phillips is your best corner right now, best defensive back. And it's a guy you just spent a 3rd round pick on, right? So everyone else, right? Your high round guys, Deontay Banks has not made a jump at all. Cordell Flott is not playing good football. I know it's like a high pick or anything, but Cordell Flott is your wide corner, not playing good ball. I mean, Jason Pinnock is not playing anywhere near good. Tyler Nubin's a rookie. We're going to let it slide, but Tyler Nubin hasn't done anything special or made any really any elite plays anywhere near. And then the linebacking situation, Bobby Okereke. I mean, Bobby Okereke was better on the Colts, right? Call it for what it is. He's come over to the Giants. He hasn't made a jump in the slightest. And then Isaiah Simmons, you took a risk on him. You took a jump on him. It looked like he might be able to finally come into his own last year, somewhat towards the end. But then this year, he's playing bad football again. So all that to say, Hunter, and rounded into one thing, the Giants they don't have any winning direction besides Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence is the best player on your roster. But at what point do you say to yourself, Dexter Lawrence is not getting up there, but in a couple years he'll be getting up there, and he is probably at the pinnacle of his career right now. So you have a guy who's at the pinnacle of his career, best at the position. I will say Dexter Lawrence is the best interior lineman in football right now. But if that's all you have and everything else is dismal, where do you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at just like from edges, and it's hard because I'm having trouble filtering by snap count, because so there's like a couple guys with like a lot of like that are one up there. But Kayvon Thibodeau, in terms of like pressure rate, just when it's all defenders, was around like 42nd in the league. Now with that being said, I think the biggest thing is kind of what you were talking about with Malik Neighbors, right? So the assumption is the Giants will probably go out and draft a QB next year, right? But what are they going to, like, so John Michael Schmitz is going to be there, right? Andrew Thomas is going to be there. But are you going to run it back with Van Rotten, Runyon, and Elimnor? Like, are those going to be your guys on the offensive line that you're going to trust to protect a rookie QB? And then with that being said, you're just going to have one pass catcher, basically. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess my thing is you're banking on getting the coach right next year. You're banking on getting the QB right. And it's just, I feel like the situation is not ready for a new quarterback yet, but I know that's what they're going to do. Like, I feel like everyone knows the Giants are going to go quarterback in the draft already through week 2, which, I mean, we knew this year they were probably trying to trade up to get Drake May or something along those lines. But I don't think the environment is right for that yet. Like, I don't think they've built enough on offense to support a rookie QB, unfortunately. And you're definitely going to have to go and get, like, one of the better... They're going to have to go offensive head coach again. But do you necessarily believe Dable was the issue with this team? I don't know if he was.
I'll say this. Is he the issue? Not necessarily, but is he helping the situation? Well, certainly not necessarily either. And, to tie it into something I wanted to say, but I almost forgot to say is, look, we saw Dable as kind of, and this was circa 3 to 4 years ago, but you remember these discussions. We would say that Dable was, Dable's the reason that Josh Allen made the leap, and Josh Allen, Dable's the reason that Josh Allen can function in this Bills offense, and Dable's the reason the Bills offense looks the way it does. But Joe Brady's come over and basically shown us, well, Dable might have been the reason that Josh Allen made the jump, but he's not the reason the offense was flowing after that, because we've seen that Joe Brady's able to come over and replicate it. And if not replicate it, keep it completely up to the same standard, right? So I think there's a point we have to ask ourselves, how much was maybe Dable overrated coming out of that coaching cycle? And how much has he proven that? Yeah. And you know what? I want to give him credit where it's due. Look, what he did in 2022 with the playoff win, to your point there, Hunter, against the Vikings, against Kevin O'Connell, who we know is a great coach, right? I'm not going to take that away from him. He's shown that he has grit. And yeah, you know what? His coordinators that year and everything was a dismal situation. Maybe Dable is the guy for this team. Maybe he is, right? Really, realistically, Dable might be the least of his team's problems. But the bottom line is, no matter how you want to look at it, and this is kind of really all I'm trying to say at this point, is if you're the Giants, and you're spot on about it, you said they're not ready for rookie quarterback. They're not ready for rookie quarterback for very likely at least another 2 full seasons. And look, even if you draft a guy high, just like the Patriots are doing with Drake May, you've got to understand that it's going to be a long rebuild. This is not going to be something overnight. I know New York fans are like immune to understanding this, but this is not how football works, right? Like nobody's drafting unless you get a CJ Stroud, which is quite literally 1 in 100 plus. Literally, if we're talking statistically, good luck finding a guy that's going to be able to come in from year one, not only to have the maturity to be able to handle the big market, but to have the maturity to handle the big market and to be able to handle the fact that this O-line is not functioning, have the footwork, the awareness, everything to be able to understand the ins and outs of how that they're going to have to do everything, every little thing right to even keep anything afloat, to even go close to 500. And that would be best case scenario. But is that going to happen? Is that what you want to happen? Not even necessarily, Hunter, because if you do all that, you're losing high draft capital that you desperately need. This team needs years and years of high draft capital, of hitting on their picks, because they haven't hit on high round picks in a while besides Malik Neighbors, right? I mean, I'm calling everything for what it is. And every Giants fan, I think at this point is coming to terms with the fact that this is true. It is. Right now, the Giants, it's tough. And also I do want to give a shout out to one guy in the Giants that I did forget to give a shout out to. Look, because I kind of glazed him over here on accident. Micah McFadden is actually also playing good ball. Micah McFadden's playing good ball, right? But so those are about 3 guys we named out of the 22 here that are playing good ball, or 4 guys. Hunter, if you have 4 guys out of your starting 22 playing good ball, you can do the math. That's not going to function.
Right. I'm trying to look up, just to wrap it up, the 2025 draft picks for the New York Giants, just to see what they have. So they have a round 1, a round 2, a round 3, 2 round 4s, a round 5, and 2 round 7. So they got a decent amount of picks. They should be able to make something shake. So just to kind of wrap this up, we are both buying that it will be completely new faces in New York next year.
Absolutely. And with the contingency that, look, it maybe somehow Dable can sneak his way out one more year. But as for the other 2, yeah, we're absolutely buying that one without a shadow of a doubt, Hunter.